Student loans, like auto or mortgage loans, are a type of installment loan. An installment loan is repaid over time with a set number of scheduled payments, also referred to as installments, until it's paid in full. The term of the loan may be as little as a few months or as long as 30 years. However, student loans are very unique compared to other installment loans. There isn't any other type of an installment loan that allows the consumer to borrow money, pay it back at a later time, sometimes 4 or 5 years or even longer, not have interest accrue on some, and have a 6-month grace period before repayment begins. The grace period is the transition period from the time the borrower leaves school to when repayment begins. It's a benefit that no other type of loan has, but many students do not take advantage of it. Working together, there are things we can do to help the borrower's transition to repayment. A smooth transition is key to successful repayment. Before we begin, let's take a look at the facets of the grace period as a quick refresher. The grace period is the period of time from the borrower's last date of attendance, or they drop below half-time status, to the beginning of repayment. Different loans have different time limits for grace. Stafford loans, which are subsidized and unsubsidized loans, have a 6-month grace period. Perkins loans have 9 months. By law, the grace period is not applicable on a PLUS loan. Graduate PLUS loan borrowers automatically receive a 6-month post-deferral postponement, which is similar to a grace period, and Parent PLUS loan borrowers can request one after their child is no longer enrolled at least half-time. The purpose of the grace period is for the borrower to get financially settled. For many borrowers, they are now on their own, managing finances for the first time, moving out or moving in, taking on additional expenses, and or earning a real paycheck. During the grace period, it's a time to get financially settled with a budget to include their student loan payment. The purpose of the grace period is also to select a repayment plan. If the borrower does not select one during their grace period, their loans will remain in the standard repayment plan, where they make the same payment amount each month over a 10-year period. If they cannot afford the amount under the standard plan, they should select a different plan during their grace period. They can always change it at a later time. The purpose of the grace period is also to transition into repayment. During the grace period, interest accrues on some loans. The Consolidated Appropriations Act eliminated the interest subsidy provided on direct subsidized loans during the grace period. That change was for new direct subsidized loan disbursements on or after July 1, 2012 and before July 1, 2014. So that was for a 2-year period of time. At this time, interest does not accrue on direct subsidized loans during the grace. However, on unsubsidized and direct PLUS loans, interest does accrue during the grace period. Borrowers only receive one grace period on their loans unless they re-enroll in school at least half-time before the end of their grace period. If they do, they will receive another full 6-month grace period when they stop attending school or drop below half-time enrollment. Next, let's look at borrowers' preparation during the grace period. Borrowers increase their chances of having success in repayment if they prepare during their grace period. We've defined 4 questions they should answer that will help with the preparation. These 4 questions are: what is or will be my employment status? How much can I afford to pay? What type of employment do or will I have? And what are my repayment goals? The first question borrowers should ask themselves is, what is or will be my employment status? If they have a steady job or will have one near the end of their grace period, they should consider the standard repayment plan. But if that amount isn't affordable, they should look at the graduated plan or one of the plans based on income. If they are unemployed, then they should consider either an unemployment deferment or one of the income-driven repayment plans such as IBR, pay-as-you-earn, revised pay-as-you-earn, or income contingent repayment. There are some caveats they need to be aware of if they are unemployed. With an unemployment deferment, they must diligently attempt to find full-time work, and they must provide documentation that they are receiving unemployment benefits or document that they have registered with a public or private employment agency. With IBR, pay-as-you-earn, or the revised pay-as-you-earn plans, if they are unemployed, they could have a zero monthly payment because they may earn below 150% of the poverty level for their family size. However, if the borrower is married and filed joint, the borrower's spouse's income is also used to determine eligibility. Depending on the spouse's income and their family size, it could make the borrower ineligible for IBR or pay-as-you-earn. With an unemployment deferment, only the borrower's circumstances are used. The second question they should ask themselves is, how much can I afford to pay? In order to do this, they should develop a monthly budget. It doesn't have to be complicated or require detailed spreadsheets or accounting strategies. They just need to identify their source or sources of income, their fixed and flexible expenses, and subtract. Then they need to compare the amount they owe with the different repayment plans. If Great Lakes is their servicer, once they've created an online account, they will be able to see their loan debt with the different repayment plans. Other servicers have similar tools too. They can also use the repayment estimator on the Department of Education site at studentloans.gov. The repayment estimator pulls in the borrower's federal loan debt from NSLDS so they can view their actual loan information. The third step is to add the student loan payment to their monthly budget to determine the repayment plan that works best. Some financial experts advise that student loan payments shouldn't exceed any more than 10 to 15% of the borrower's income. If it gets beyond that, then they may want to look at a repayment plan that will lower their monthly payment so they will not get too overextended. Of course, it depends on other expenses such as rent and transportation, two of the largest items in a person's budget. Next, they should ask, what type of employment do or will I have? If they are going to work in the public sector, they should consider public service loan forgiveness. With this program, after the borrower makes 120 qualifying payments working for an eligible public service employer, they will have the remainder of their debt forgiven. To qualify, they need to ensure they have a direct loan, work for an eligible employer, and make 120 payments with either the standard IBR, pay-as-you-earn, revised pay-as-you-earn, or ICR plans. If they are going to work in education, they may want to determine whether or not they qualify for teacher loan forgiveness. With this program, they must work 5 consecutive years for a Title I school, meaning 30% of the students qualify for services under Title I, and they are a highly qualified teacher. If so, they could have $5,000 or even $1,700 forgiven if they are a highly qualified mathematics, science, or special education teacher. The department has created the Teacher Cancellation Low-Income Directory of public and private nonprofit elementary and secondary schools list. Schools are on this list because they have been designated by the U.S. Department of Education as having a high concentration of students from low-income families. And if they're going to work for the federal government, they may want to look into the Federal Employee Student Loan Program. This program allows federal agencies to repay federal student loans on behalf of their employees. Although the student loan is not technically forgiven, agencies may make payments to the loan holder up to a maximum of $10,000 for an employee in a calendar year. And the fourth question they should ask is, what are my repayment goals? If the goal is to pay off the loan as quickly as possible with the least amount of interest, they should remain in the standard repayment plan or choose the graduated option. With both of these repayment plans, the term is 10 years. If their goal is to have a monthly payment more in line with their income, they should select one of the income-driven repayment options. If their goal is to have a lower payment that will increase as their income increases, then they should select the Graduated Repayment Plan, IBR, Pay-As-You-Earn, or the Revised Pay-As-You-Earn plans. However, with the graduated option, to make up for the lower payments earlier in the 10-year term, the payments will be significantly higher towards the end of the term. With the income-driven repayment plans, the borrower has 20 years or 25 years to repay, and any amount remaining will be forgiven. However, in many cases, borrowers would have paid off the loan before the forgiveness provision, and as a result, will pay more in interest. The borrower may have other expenses, such as a private loan, and need to have a lower monthly payment. If they do not qualify for one of the income-driven repayment options, they may want to consider the extended repayment or consolidation. With the extended plan, the borrower will have 25 years to repay, but they must have $30,000 in either the direct or FFELP programs. With the consolidation loan, the repayment term is determined by the total loan debt, to include federal and private loan debt up to 30 years. Neither of these options consider the borrower's income, but will give them a longer repayment term, thus reducing the monthly payment. And finally, if the borrower has multiple loans and wants a single payment, they should consider consolidation. Consolidation will give them one payment and could also give them a lower payment depending on their repayment term. For the last part of our webinar, we want to share ways you can help your borrowers make the transition from grace to repayment. Reaching out to them during grace to remind them of their imminent loan payment can be significant in helping them prepare for repayment. Your correspondence, whether it's an email, letter, or postcard, might be the only trigger that gets them to take action. Although as their federal servicer, we send communication to the borrower throughout their time in school and during grace, some may be more compelled to respond to you, their former school, as opposed to their assigned servicer. You can supplement what servicers send to borrowers during grace by sending letters, emails, and postcards to encourage, inform, and/or remind them how to prepare for repayment, and to validate their contact information. This is some of the important items that you can include in your grace period campaigns. Create a budget to determine affordability. Use the repayment estimator at studentloans.gov to determine the amount they would pay under the various repayment plans. Sign up for an online account with their loan servicer. They can change their plan because direct loan borrowers can change their plans whenever they need to. They can change their due date to align it to their pay date. If they have difficulty making a payment, they can postpone with a deferment or a forbearance. Longer repayment periods will cost them more in interest, and they should contact their servicer if they have difficulty making payment. When sending letters, make them stand out. You don't want your letter to look like other mail they are receiving. Use colored envelopes, use your school's logo or mascot, or make the letter look like an invitation so that it appears as though it's something special. Highlight what you want them to know most in bold or color, such as there are several repayment plans to choose from. Select one that will give you a payment that you can afford. And encourage them to contact their servicer if they have questions. When sending emails, utilize your school's email address. They just left school, so chances are they are still using it. Use creative subject lines to get the borrower's attention, such as important information or Common University wants to help you. Keep it precise yet informative. Don't make it too long. Use bullets and share the most important information first. Our attention span is shorter when reading emails. And avoid including personally identifiable information. Postcards can be effective too. If you use postcards, use it to serve as a reminder. Keep it simple yet informative. Utilize creativity. Ask for a callback don't mention the word loan, and avoid including personally identifiable information. So, for example, your postcard could say, your grace period is coming to an end. We want to help you. Call Common University. The Department of Education has shared on several occasions that the grace period is the most critical time when borrowers need to be contacted. Together, we can help borrowers make a smooth transition into repayment. As their former school, you can also reach out to remind them about their upcoming repayment, remind them of their repayment options, and encourage them to contact their servicer if they have questions or need help. We have resources that we want to share with you, including Portfolio Navigator, our free portfolio management tool that you can use for your default prevention initiatives. One of the major pluses to this tool is that you can use it to help all borrowers, regardless of servicer, to get or stay on track for successful student loan payment. And it's free, simple to use, and it can provide you with a list of borrowers who are in their grace period. You can also obtain this information from the NSLDS Date Entered Repayment Report. Thank you so much for viewing the Smart Talks webinar, Transitioning from Grace to Repayment, Maximizing the Opportunity.